Hey, welcome back to the eDrum Workshop, I'm Luke. Roland's recent version 2 software release for the TD-17 updated and added a few notable features to the module, which can quite dramatically change the sound and feel of your kit, as you've just heard. Fortunately, I haven't run into any custom kit breaking issues like when I updated my TD-27, so this free software update leaves us with mostly upsides. That said, if you're happy with your kit without the update, is it worth the hassle? The most obvious change compared to the previous software is the addition of new preset kits and a bunch of new stock user samples that are used within these kits, as well as being available for you to use on your own custom kits. The interesting thing about the previous 1.02 software version is that there were technically two variations of it from what I can tell. If you bought a TD-17 pad-based kit or a TD-17 module on its own, you would have had 50 stock preset kits to choose from. If you bought a Roland VAD306 kit, I believe the module came with the same software version, but there would be an additional 10 preset kits that were exclusive to that model. So the number of new kits that you'll find when you update to version 2 will depend on which kit configuration you have. There are 10 new version 2 exclusive kits, and then the 10 VAD306 presets are also now included as standard. On top of this, the stock user sample count has gone from 7 to 33. Let's check out the new version 2 kits. One thing that I noticed when scouring the samples is that a couple of them have been renamed from the previous version. This doesn't affect the functionality at all, the samples are the same as before, though it is easier to identify which kit the in-your-face kick sample belongs to now. Interestingly, the Deep Daft Kits samples used to be misnamed as Deep Draft in the previous version. This has now been fixed. That might have been a tenuous use of the word interestingly. Overall, I think the addition of these kits is great. More choice out of the box is always a good thing, and some of them sound pretty decent, though personally I doubt I'll be using them. One downside though is that the new samples take up a lot of room in the already very limited user sample memory. The previous samples took up 5% of the user sample memory, and the new additions take that to a whopping 56%. So if you like to add your own samples, or you have kits from third parties that include samples like the ones from my store, you're going to have significantly less room for those samples if you keep the stock ones intact. Of course, you can delete these stock samples manually if you don't think you'll use them, or you could create multiple backups of the module that contain different kits and swap between those to have more kits. It's just a shame really that the memory is so small on this module, but obviously you can't update that with software. The new kits also take advantage of some of the new features on the module. Kit compression and reverb have been added as brand new features, as well as the multi-effect settings being expanded. One of those new multi-effect settings is practically a whole other new feature in disguise, but I'll come back to that shortly. The addition of reverb is a really nice touch. Previously there was was always the ambience setting, which emulates the ambience of different spaces, from living rooms to studios, large clubs to stadiums. However, having reverb as its own setting gives you much more flexibility. It brings things closer to an acoustic-style microphone processing setup, where you can use the ambience settings as if they're your room microphones, then add reverb on top for specific instruments or for the whole kit, without changing the room feel. You could previously add reverb as a multi-effect, and you still can, but the multi-effect settings aren't affected by the ambience dial. The new reverb setting is joined to the ambience dial, which is far more useful day to day in my opinion. Compression is a feature that was on my TD-17 wishlist for the longest time. Unfortunately, they didn't go as far as adding individual pad compression, which I personally find very useful. However, kit compression can still do a lot for the overall sound and feel of a kit, especially for genres that want more punch like pop, rock, and metal. You can go into the fine detail settings on this to adjust things like the threshold, attack time or release, and there's a single or two band option like on the TD-50X and TD-27. It's also great that they added in the dry-wet mix setting from these modules. This lets you mix the compressed signal and the uncompressed signal together to achieve parallel compression, which can be used in a number of ways. I used to try to emulate compression using the lo-fi compress multi-effect setting, so it's great that this workaround isn't needed anymore. Along with these, the multi-effect settings have also been expanded with 11 new effects added. Personally, I don't use many of these settings other than the previously mentioned lo-fi compressor, but it's always nice to have more options to play with when creating new kits, especially if you enjoy more out there sounds. I'm not going to go into the ins and outs of all of these effects, but the one that surprised me the most was the Equalizer setting. This is a 4-band EQ that can be set up to somewhat mimic the master EQ setting found in the TD-27 and TD-50X modules. Unlike that setting on those modules, you can't see the EQ curve as a graph, it's just text and numbers. Also, you choose how much of each instrument gets sent into a multi-effect. A true master EQ would be applied directly to the full stereo mix of the kit, but if you send equal amounts, it acts very similarly. It's pretty cool that this was just casually added to the multi-effects menu, and no doubt I'll find a use for it myself. The last very minor update is the addition of the Tdz menu. This is where you can go to load kit files that you've downloaded from the Roland cloud service. So all of the added features definitely improve the functionality of the module for most users. If you never make your own custom kits, you'll probably at least appreciate the added presets and samples. If you do create your own kits, there are plenty of new settings to dig into. If you buy third-party kits, they'll be able to take advantage of those settings for you. However, just like with the TD-27 update, I think this update would have been a great opportunity to add in some more copy menu functions. This is one area in particular that's severely lacking on this module. You can copy kits from one user slot to another, you can copy a factory preset kit out of the preset memory on your module to restore them if necessary, and that's it. There's no ability to copy individual pads or instruments from one kit to another, which is the most annoying thing for me. It makes creating new kits out of pieces that you like from other kits way more tiresome. This would have been a pretty simple way to really enhance the abilities of this module. The ability to control the volume of the master output separately from the headphone output would also be very useful. They're paired to the same volume dial, and obviously I'm aware that you can't add another dial to your module over the internet, but even a setting to boost or lower the gain of the master outputs independently, like you can on the TD-27 or TD-50X, would have been really appreciated. If you want to use your TD-17 for live shows, turning up or down your headphones will also change the level that's going to the desk. Unless you happen to get lucky and you just don't need to adjust your headphone volume at all, you'll need a mixer or a headphone amp or something like that. I don't know if that's technically possible to pull off with a software update though. It might be a hardware limitation. If you are thinking about using your eDrums live and you want to know what differences to expect between your headphones and a PA system, check out this video right here. Let me know down in the comments what you think of the new TD-17 version update, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers!